Hello, book lovers. Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Blue-Eyed Black Devil, and I am here to debut another feature on my channel. I am calling it Video Revisited, and this time it is on the book The Help by Kathrynstockett. Now, in her About the Author segment, I told you there is a tiny section at the end of this book entitled Too Little, Too Late. This is where I am going to start to revisit this video. Why? Because for me, in order to tell it the way I want to, I had to go to the end. And in this case, the end just so happened to be the beginning. So let's go. Now, Kathryn says that this book is loosely based on her life. There are two main reasons I love this section so much. One is that it enriches the overall telling of the story. Now, I've read this book 4 or 5 times. Now, the first time I read it, when I got to this section, okay, that's interesting. But about a year later, when I read it again, I went to this section first, and it just made each of the characters' storylines deeper. It enriched the relationships between blacks and white, parent and children or child, friends amongst each other, relationships between blacks and white. All of that came more colorful or vivid to me after reading this one section right here. What I want to try to do, though, is connect the dots between Kathryn, the person, and the characters in the book. Kathrynstockett was born in Jackson, Mississippi, 1964, which is also where the story takes place. The story spans 2 years, from 1962 to 1964. And as I mentioned in her About the Author, you would have to be living under a rock not to know that both the Civil Rights Movement as well as the Ku Klux Klan or KKK were both in their heydays at this time. And here's this white child of privilege who became an adult white woman of means is being raised in this type of an environment. The story is told through the eyes of the 3 main characters, Abilene, Minnie, and Skeeter. Now, if you haven't read the book or watched the movie, or maybe you have, but it's been a while since you have, let me just refresh your memory or tell those who haven't done either. Both Abilene and Minnie are the hired help. In this case, they're black maids. Skeeter was the white child and later adult who came from a privileged background. Now, about connecting the dots. In real life, per Kathrynstockett's own words, she says that she knows she wasn't the prettiest or cutest little baby or girl. She also knows that she's not the prettiest or most beautiful woman either. Now, for me, guys, the dots are connected through 2 characters right here. And both of them are the real-life Kathrynstockett. Now, in the book, the toddler, Kathrynstockett, was May Mobley Leafold. And then Skeeter, what was her last name? Skeeter Phelan? She was the adult Kathrynstockett. Now, although in the book, May Mobley is one of Catherine's best friend's daughter, but Elizabeth was having trouble bonding with May Mobley because of the way she looked. She was overweight and she was not that pretty, so Elizabeth really just didn't have anything for her. And then the adult Skeeter, her mother, I guess they got along. I guess they did. But her mother treated her similar, I won't say exactly like Elizabeth treated May Mobley. I don't think it was that part. But she was always on Skeeter about the way she dressed, the way she looked, the way she carried herself. And that's why I say both of these characters, both May Mobley and Skeeter, are the child and later adult Kathryn Stockett. Now let me go back to Elizabeth's relationship with May Mobley for a minute. Now, it's said that she did not bond with May Mobley because she wasn't pretty and she was a bit overweight. But judging from Abilene's description of Elizabeth, that apple didn't fall far from the tree. Elizabeth herself would never have been in the running for being a beauty queen. And I think that might be part of Elizabeth's rejection of May Mobley. She sees herself in May Mobley. May Mobley was just a chubbier or a heavier version of Elizabeth, and that's not what she wanted to see in her child. Emily said Elizabeth was so skinny that it looked like she was just made up of knobs, just walking around on knobs. No flesh nowhere to be found. But you're going to reject your baby because she is chubby. All right then, Miss Elizabeth. All right now, that was my interpretation of Abilene's description of Elizabeth. Now, I want to connect the dots some more. Now I want to talk about the similarities between Dimitri and the character Minnie. Who is Dimitri? Dimitri was Kathryn Stockett and her two siblings' real-life maid. Now, I don't know how long she worked for the Stockett family. I just know that she was working there when she passed away. And when she did, Kathryn was 16. Kathryn has an older brother and an older sister. By how much? I don't know. She didn't say. She just said that they were quite a bit older than she was or is. So with that being said, the Stockett family may have been the only job Dimitri ever had. Now getting back to the similarities between Dimitri, Minnie, and to some degree Abilene. Now, both real life Dimitri as well as the character Minnie were married to mean drunkards. They were. Now, they would talk to you about any and everything you ever wanted to know about them. But they drew the line at talking about their husbands. Their husbands were the only subject that you weren't allowed to question them about. Now, the difference between Minnie and Dimitri is that Dimitri, we don't know about her parentage, but in the book, Minnie was not only married to a drunk, her father was also an alcoholic. The other difference between Dimitri and Minnie is, in real life, Dimitri never had children. when people would ask her how many children she had, she would always say 3 because she counted the Stockett children as her children. So that was Catherine, her brother Rob, and her sister Susan. However, in the book, Minnie had 5 children when we met her, and by the time the book ended, she was pregnant with the 6th one. Okay, now I see a similarity between character Abilene and real-life maid Dimitri in that they both were nurturers. Abilene cared for 17 white children over the span of years that she worked as a maid. May Mobley was the last baby that she cared for. But she was there just like in real life with Catherine. Dimitri was there for she and her siblings. And Abilene was that way for all 17 of the children she reared as well. Abilene herself only had the one child whose name is Treelor. Oh my gosh, I have got to stop. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked now, but I have got to discuss the names of these characters. Oh my goodness. So like I said, Abilene had the son named Treelor. Then there is Bertrina, Godella, and May Mobley. May Mobley got it double time because her last name was Leafold. May Mobley Leafold. Now, I think May Mobley is her first and middle name, like May and then Mobley, but it really, I guess, could have been one. But then we don't have any control over our last names. But yours is Leafold. So you just got jacked all the way around, poor little May Mobley. Now getting back to Abilene, like I said, she only had the one son, Treelor. Treelor was killed as a result of some sort of a trucking accident he had. He was working one day, and I believe he either fell off a lumber truck or was hit some kind of way. They said what the accident was. Please forgive me, I can't remember. But I do believe it was a vehicular accident. And when it happened, Abilene said to her, Treelor he was too physically small to take that job on. You know, like body build wise, he just wasn't big enough or heavy enough to do that particular type of work. But he took the job because he felt he needed the money. Well, on the day of the accident, they did get him to the hospital, but there wasn't much they could do. So she took her son home with her then and there. And they were sitting on her sofa when Treelor died in Abilene's arms. Now after that, it took Abilene 2 or 3 months before she felt physically strong enough to get up and try to make something out of what was left of her life. And this is when we meet Minnie. Yeah, Minnie was 17 years younger than Abilene. I believe they crossed paths by the type of work they did, but whenever they met, they became fast friends for a lifetime. In fact, when Treelor died, it was Minnie who nursed Abilene back to health. Now, Minnie did this despite having to work long days. So she would go to Abilene's house on her way to work every morning, and she would like tidy up what little there was to tidy up, because Abilene was just bedridden. She would make sure Abilene had something to eat. She would open the curtains up and, do little odds and ends. Then she would go and work her long day's work, get off work, go back by Abilene's, and repeat the same thing. Make sure she had something to eat, close the curtains or blinds or whatever, and then go home to deal with her alcoholic and abusive husband and their 5 children. When Abilene was ready to go out to find work, she found it. She became the maid for Elizabeth Leafold. I talked about her a little bit earlier. Elizabeth and her daughter, May Mobley. Now, growing up, Elizabeth had 2 best friends. One of them is main character Eugenia Phelan, or Skeeter. That's what she went by to most people. And then they also had a really good friend in Hilly Holbrook. Now, of these 3 ladies, Skeeter, Hilly, and Elizabeth is the only one of them who did not compromise. Neither did her husband. But her husband, Riley, was a very hard-working young man. He got up and went to work to pay for everything they did have. Well, Hilly is a force to be reckoned with. She just has a take charge personality, and she doesn't care who she has or what she has to do or move to get out of her way, to get things done when she wants them done the way she wants them to be done. Like the time she convinced Elizabeth that she should put an outhouse or connect an outhouse to their main house, Elizabeth and Riley's house, just so that Abilene, Elizabeth's maid, would not have to use their indoor bathroom. And I guess she did it without discussing it with Riley. I know she did, because Elizabeth did tell Hilly that Riley said that they couldn't afford that right then. Hilly told Elizabeth, well, just tell him that he'll see a big return on his investment when they sell the house. So she had it done, and that's what she told Riley. Well, let's just say it didn't go over very well. It did not go over well at all. It went over like a lead balloon. Led Zeppelin. Okay, anyway, back to the telling of the story. It didn't go over well. Well, on another occasion, Hilly is telling Elizabeth and Skeeter that she has taken the initiative. She wants the junior league. Hilly works with them to some degree. What they were, I don't know. I know they were some form of politicians. Hilly has decided that all white people who have hired help, it should be law or mandatory that they provide outhouses for the hired help. That is what she wanted. Well, Elizabeth really didn't say anything, but then again, she never did, not to Hilly. But Skeeter says, well, maybe she made a joke out of it. She said something along the lines of, well, maybe we should make one for you too, Hilly. And Hilly was like, well, I wouldn't joke like that if I were you, Skeeter. Now, right around this time, she tells Skeeter tells them that she had gotten a job. She was writing a column for the local newspaper. Her job was to go and talk to, people would write in asking her questions, sort of like, when I was growing up, it was some lady that I guess, was on TV or had some sort of a column. I remember it was Heloise Hints. And people would write in questions like, how do you get a particular stain out? Or what do you use when you want to polish or do something? She was just giving them answers. Which dinner fork do you use? Or what side does the dinner fork go on when you are setting a proper table? These are the type questions that people would write in. I guess Heloise must have been what I guess today we would call like, I don't know, the first lady of etiquette, I guess. Well, this was the type job that Skeeter had at the newspaper. Well, during the same conversation, Abilene walks in and she overhears Hilly trying to make her point about all white people need to have outhouses because, let's face it, black people have diseases and some of them have been known to cause people to die. They have germs and we should not be subjected to dealing with black people and their diseases and all this stuff. So, that bothered Abilene, which couldn't say anything. At some point, Hilly looks up and sees Abilene, and she's like, Abilene, don't you enjoy that nice outhouse Miss Elizabeth had built for you? Abilene couldn't say anything, but yes, ma'am.
That's what Ross Barnett says, and you can't argue with the governor. Well, certainly not.
I thought that was just a bit much, but then again, that's Hilly. So in Hilly's zeal to see this initiative through to its fruition, to say that she was preoccupied or obsessed with it would be a gross understatement. Neither one, I just use that phrase because that's the only one that might kind of sort of fit the bill. But that was Hilly. Okay, so one day she got up, getting ready to start her day, whatever. She looks out of her window and what does she see? Nothing but commodes all over her front lawn. Just commodes in every color, size, shapes, as far as the grass would grow. You saw commodes. And her neighbors were all outside laughing, killing themselves, cracking up laughing at Hilly. Hilly goes running back in the house to call Elizabeth. Elizabeth and Abilene came running over like they were supposed to be some Captain Save or whatever Hilly is. And Hilly was like, it's Skeeter. She put it in the newspaper. I specifically said, drop all old coats off at my house, not commodes. And then she cries, she says to Elizabeth, why did she do this to me? And all Elizabeth could say was, why, I don't know. I don't know, Hilly. That was funny. But, I thought about it after I stopped laughing. I was like, but, in all honesty, if it was me and I firmly or passionately believed in something enough to see it through to fruition, there would be nothing about my actions that would humiliate me afterwards. Like, even if things don't pan out the way I had hoped, I still couldn't be humiliated because I saw it through to fruition. But, you know, come to think of it, I don't think we heard anything else about that. I don't know if it passed or if it failed or whatever. I would consider it an epic fail. And since it was done on such a grand scale, for me, that is when the humiliation would sit in. Because I've been out all over campaigning, trying to get this passed, pushed, whatever. And not only did I end up with moles all in my front yard, the law apparently didn't pass. So I'm like, all this work I did, and for nothing? I mean, that would be when the humiliation was set in if it were me. That's why I set personal goals. So if I don't reach them, nobody knows it but me. Okay, I quit. Book lovers. This video has already run longer than I intended for it to. So I'm going to stop right here and start work on part 2. I'll get it up as soon as I possibly can. But for now, this concludes part 1 of Video Revisited. I hope you all enjoyed these videos as much as I enjoyed putting them together. So subscribers, thank you for being subscribed. I really appreciate you. Visitors, also, if you happen upon the channel, please feel free to join us. We enjoy ourselves when we do get together. And everyone, don't forget to like or share. And should you honor me by leaving a comment, and I hope you will, please do so respectfully. And make sure that your notification bells are set to all so you won't miss a video whenever I do post. And in the meantime, book lovers, you know the old routine. As long as there are books around, there is always something to read. So, book lovers, thank you once again for watching and or listening. We're going through some treacherous times regarding weather, so please try to stay cool and safe and as comfortable as possible. And God bless you.